So far, California counts ballots extremely slowly because their laws are kind of weird, and so do several of the other West Coast states. So saying, isn't it weird that Joe Biden got so many votes? I'm just asking questions. Where did those votes come from? Fill in the blank with your own biases. It seems that this graph was either created by someone who was ignorant or someone who had bad intentions. In actuality, once all the votes are counted, Kamala's vote total will probably be very close to Joe Biden's, which...
I don't think that's true, though. What percentage of California's votes have been counted? How far up are we on that? 58% reporting. So if it keeps the current proportion and it's 3/5 of the way done, more or less, Kamala Harris could get an extra 3-4 million, still down like 8 million from Joe Biden. So 8-7 million votes, quote unquote, missing. But that would also mean that Donald Trump, by a few million votes, did better than in 2020. Again, like, the narrative isn't changing here. Yeah, the same story is happening here, Thane. Exactly. The underlying, like, the information that we're using to arrive at these conclusions is changing, but the conclusions aren't. It's just altering, like, the work, the basic arithmetic that you have to do to reach the same truth.
Which is maybe a little bit weird considering that Joe Biden is historically unpopular and she is his vice president, but I digress. The point here is that this graph lied in two very different ways. First, by having wrong data, which is kind of unforgivable. But leaving that aside, if it were correct data, in my book, it would still be kind of lying because it would have exaggerated the difference by using a non-zero x-axis. It would have all of the information to help you understand what it actually meant, but the point of a graphical representation of data is to help you understand the actual situation, and I think it would still be failing at that. So with all that in mind, let's talk about how
yeah, like, even in California, man, take a look at what the results looked like in California back in 2020. Joe Biden got 63 to 34, so basically like 2-1 in favor of Joe Biden, and this is what the county map looked like. And here's what it's looking like right now in California, with it more like a 60-40 or 3/5 to 2/5, and like a significant number of counties shifting red. Pretty not good. 2-1 to 3-2 is a huge movement. Yeah, it's massive. It's absolutely massive, yeah. I still can't believe that feeling during election night where we took a look at New Jersey and found that New Jersey was up by like 6 points for Kamala. New Jersey. Not on the proportion, DM. It's pretty locked in on the proportion. If Dems keep their current trajectory, could we lose California? Brother, if Dems keep their current trajectory, we could lose the country. We could lose everything.
The president of the United States is elected by the states.
Hank is a liberal who I think has a difficulty adjusting to the implications of this. Yeah, you can be the smartest guy in the world, but ideology is ideology. You know, it doesn't change the fact that from Hank Green's perspective, like,
not by the citizens. So we look at the states, not the citizens. But still, we look at these maps and we think they are representing humans rather than states. Now, if we actually want to know how people voted, we need a map that shows color gradients, because trust me, as a person who lives in a red state, I don't like that my existence gets completely ignored by electoral maps. But then maybe we also still have to correct for population, which makes maps look super weird. But I also feel like we need to talk about these maps, these vote swing maps, which have become all the rage because they do show something important, but the important thing they show is very specific and not entirely what it seems. These maps tell you the 2020 to 2024 percentage difference between the spread between Republicans and Democrats in every county in America, which is a sentence that I find much more confusing than I initially find the map to be. My brain looks at the map and it says, this is how many more people.
The f does Hank Green know about polling? Hank Green's a smart guy. I'm not trying to like insult or discount him. The problem with liberals isn't that they're stupid. It's like, this is that unironically, that's always been like a stupid way of thinking about politics. Smart guys have smart ideology. That's not really how it works. There's a relationship between like level of education and susceptibility to propaganda, but in terms of like the way you respond to this information, a lot of it is just framing, and the framing that I have is, you know, a Marxist one, and the framing that he has presumably isn't, so he's going to engage with this information differently.
Voted for Trump this time rather than last time, but that's not necessarily true. Now, if I'm thinking hard, I might think, oh, well, it could be that Donald Trump got the same number of votes, but Kamala Harris got fewer than Joe Biden. But it could also mean that they both got fewer but Trump still increased his margin, or they both got more and Trump increased his margin. It only shows the percentage increase in the margin, no absolute numbers at all. This also
That's
means
true, but that's the point of the map. It's very good at showing that, right? Because otherwise, if you want to look at all of those different edge cases where like both votes grew, but Trump's more than Kamala's, or both votes depreciated, but Kamala's more than Trump's, or whatever, you would need to like parse a bunch of different like graphs to contain all that information. Whereas the county by county shift between 2020 and 2024 is so pronounced and so consistent across the country. Like there's a reason why it looks as stark as it does, right? It's not like it's not like useless information at all. It's just you have to know what to do with it.
That it still suffers from similar problems to electoral maps, with a special one of its own, which is that this is a county-by-county map, which means that areas with a lot of red aren't...
Why do people cling to ideology like Hank here when you said earlier that ideology means nothing and material interests everything? I don't think you understood my initial point. I was talking about the interests of capital holders, the bourgeoisie. Hank Green is successful. He's not like literally part of the capital. He's not like in the upper echelon ruling society, which by the way, if you take a look at literally the entire business class in the United States, all of them have bent the knee to Trump. Many of them did a long time ago. Dozens and dozens of powerful people in the GOP and the business world who denounced Trump after January 6th, all of them have bent the knee now. Material interest. Doesn't he own several companies? Probably. Do you think that he's up there with like Elon? Do you think he's like lobbying at the Oval Office? Technically, you're a part of the capital class if you have like shares of a company, because that's income you could potentially earn off of ownership and not work. But we're talking about like a distinct class of people, not literally in like a menial and technical sense in their relationship to the means of production, but in terms of their like social affluence, their relationship to those who have that, you know?
Necessarily areas with huge swings. Instead, they are areas with small counties. And some states have way more counties than others. Alaska doesn't have counties at all. I didn't know that until I looked at this map and I was like, why does Alaska?
I actually didn't either. I learned that from election night looking at the county map.
Only have one arrow. America's weird. And then last, you got the same problem with this map as with all the others. You got like a people versus land problem more generally. Each arrow is its size based on percentage, which means that the arrow for Loving County in Texas is the same scale as the arrow for LA County in California, even though Loving County has 96 voters.
But that's exactly the point, that there was a rightward shift everywhere. In cities, suburbs, rural areas, in areas that are largely black, in areas that are largely white, in areas with a lot of immigrants, like across the board, with just a few pockets, Utah, a few parts of Colorado, Georgia suburb, blah, blah, blah. Like we've seen the exceptions, northwestern Washington, but like that's the thing that makes the map so significant. It's so pronounced.
Look, all of these things are super useful tools. It would be much harder to understand any of this stuff without these maps and graphs. I'm not arguing that. They're tools meant to simplify, and they do a good job, but that can increase the risk that we learn the wrong things from looking at them. The second thing, I'm very discouraged by this. I decided to make a video about a map today because I felt like I had to do something that like referenced the reality of the moment, but I just can't get deeper than that. Like I don't feel at all qualified to do the analysis, though. I don't know. Maybe I'll do some on Hank's channel.
Bring me on, Hank, tag me in. Vosh, well, maybe semantics. I hate the framing of a rightward shift. It seems like there has been a slight rightward shift, but it's mostly just Democrats not turning out. That's the main thing. Also, as we looked at earlier, Democrats are now the party of the elites. Rhetorically. Like they're the party of well-educated, higher income people, not like literally the billionaires. And Republicans are now the party of the lower income, lower educated people. So that's interesting. Do you think Mr. Bonarelli will have to do a moment of reflection after the election? I live now with a deep hope, and I know there's no way to say this without coming across like I'm very similar to many smug leftists online. I live with a deep and maybe very naive hope that there can be some kind of reconciliation, and we can all, and liberals, myself, whatever, kind of work together in a difficult time, at least on the understanding that we have to take lessons from this election about populism, about messaging, about the importance of a strong narrative, about policy not mattering as much as the appearance of policy, of, well, populism, largely, of Bernie Sanders and the stuff that he represented, the fact that he did well with the groups that kind of ran over to Trump. And I guess, like, I don't really hold out hope for him specifically because I don't, for a variety of reasons, but I really do, like, look, there are different camps of liberals right now, or sorry, of leftists right now, and a lot of them are in the stage of, like, the Chapo trap house, we're all being sent to the death camp